There you go.
If
He's fucking pricks.
if killing Nazis from a wheelchair isn't badass, well, I give up then.
Word.
Word. Yeah, that was pretty badass.
Welcome to Nerds Gone Platinum, the Wolfenstein spoiler cast. There will be spoilers. Snape kills Dumbledore.
Fuck yeah.
Vader
Bastard deserved it too.
Vader is Frodo's father.
I mean, those between 6 and 7, man, he just got into some weird stuff.
Joining us, as always, well, yours truly, Matthew Keel.
Jason Marshall, nice to be here.
Just me. Never been on the show before.
I'm one of your hosts, Gimpy J. Joining me, as always, Moose and Jeff, and our special guest, Matthew Keel. How's everyone doing?
Doing well.
Doing good today. I got out at 8 o'clock from work, so it's a happy day. Right. Happy day, happy beer.
Yeah, today is my Friday, so that's good.
Bastard.
I think we're giving new meaning to spoiler cast because we're actually going to spoil the game for someone on the episode.
That's right.
And if you're not in the Facebook group, guess who?
I would like to say I one day aspire to be as old as Jeff and work for a company as long as Jeff to just have fucking vacation days hanging out at the end of the year.
Oh, it's great. Oh, man, that would be so awesome.
In the months of November and December, I'm going to work 3 days. You know?
I'm on sabbatical.
I just want to say I aspire to all three of y'all to eventually be able to grow facial hair because I can't even do that.
He is the baby of the group. No facial hair.
Got some length going on over here.
Well, you said your trimmer is coming in soon this week?
It is, yeah. Best Buy sent me the thing. They're ready to pick up. I just got to go get them. So.
That's what you can do tomorrow. Trim it down.
Next standard episode of NGP, I should be looking like a well-groomed
machine,
middle-aged man.
Can I ask you a question? Does the place that does your haircut not trim your beard for you as well, or have you done it yourself in the past and you're just like, I'll just buy something and do it myself?
This is the second time I've ever grown facial hair, and the last time I did it was when I was a sophomore in college.
Wow, that's quite the gap, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've never had.
I felt it was time.
Wait a minute. Ocarina of Time came out 19 years ago. Did you have facial hair before that?
Yeah. So, well, you know how old I am. So, this was 1990, I think.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think Moose and I were in 4th grade.
6.
That was a sophomore.
Well, yeah, no, 4th. No, you're right. Damn,
I know. I know.
God. Oh my god.
I was a sophomore in college.
Wow.
You know what? You know who doesn't have facial hair and is clean shaven? BJ Blazkowicz.
That's fucking A right.
He's cool. That's all right.
Well, what's everyone's just immediate thoughts on the game? Moose, you're going last because, well.
All right, Jeff.
All right. Well, if you haven't listened to this previous week's episode of Nerds Gone Platinum, it was my game of the year. So I was completely blown away by it. I wasn't actually even expecting it to be my game of the year because up until that point it was Horizon Zero Dawn. But the story was just phenomenal. It really hooked me in. I didn't spend any time during cutscenes looking at my phone or being distracted by something. It literally had me glued to the screen and just brought me through these whole range of emotions along with the ride with BJ, right? So it was like you're kind of feeling for him and his struggles he's having mentally, having gone through this huge trauma at the end of New Order and coming into the game the way that it did, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. And then, just feeling like he's worthless and that he's approaching death and he's not going to make it, but he really wants to make it because he's in love with Anya. And, he's got kids on the way and all this. And then they just sprinkle in all these bits of comedy in between, which is just like so unexpected. You're just, especially the banter back and forth with the NPC characters when you're walking around inside the submarine. You just like walk up on these people standing there and they just start talking to each other, and it's like, it's comical. And then, there's all the just shocking moments that you just didn't expect to happen. And I'm sure we'll go through those as well, but it's like, wow. I mean, just brings you from one range of emotions to the next, to the next, to the next, and just had me glued. So I loved it.
Cool. Matt?
I pretty much echo everything Jeff just said, except for the fact that it's not my game of the year. And speaking of Horizon Zero Dawn, when I had finished that game, a couple people like from Platinum Achievements had asked me what I had thought about the game, and I thought it was a step forward for story writing in games, and for a different reason than I think Wolfenstein is. Over the years, I've always said video game stories are they're at their best, at their absolute best, they are not great. And I think Horizon, the way it worked at story and wrapped everything up, and did everything intelligently without being didactic, was a leap forward. Wolfenstein, however, is specifically the new Colossus is a special thing, mainly because it speaks through alternate history to the time we are in such a pointed way that it feels like I would assume a protest song would have felt in the 60s, where they're addressing concerns of the moment today, and because they're addressing it through fiction and allegory and with references to what's happening now, it sort of amps up the timelessness of it. And this game, like, I'll be honest, I don't think it's good. Like, I don't think the gameplay is good. I think the shooting is at its best inaccurate, and at its worst deplorable. I think the movement around the stage is great, but that story makes up for any flaws in the game, more so than any story in a video game for me has in my many years gaming.
Do you, going off on your whole talking about video games not doing the greatest job of telling stories, do you feel they're hamstringed by the medium that they are and the fact that they rely on a lot of the input from the player?
Yes.
And like a lot of decisions are based on what the player would want to do. Because, they always say choices, 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 choices. And then like you get to Mass Effect, all your choices in Mass Effect 1 and 2 are going to affect what happens in 3. And we know what the fuck happened there. Like complete shit show. So, yeah. So you agree that that's really what it is. It's the medium. Because like a film doesn't have to have input from who's watching it or interacting with it. A film can just be like, here's my story, fucking deal with it. But like a game, you have to deal with an interaction with your audience.
Exactly.
More so. Okay.
Yeah,
Exactly.
One of the challenges for video games and just having a fully fleshed out story that keeps you captivated is the fact that the game is so much longer than all these other mediums, right? Like a movie is 2 hours,
3 hours,
3 hours total. It's like obviously a TV show is an hour or half an hour. A book could be a lot longer, but it's got the benefit of having printed text with the ability to use your mind's eye in terms of what you get out of the story. And I think it's just super difficult for a game that's going to be 15, 20, 60 to 100 hours to keep a narrative that is of consistently good throughout the entire thing. And when you look at games that are shorter, like Hellblade, or Gone Home, or Edith Finch, these
Everybody's Gone to the Rapture,
right? Exactly. Yeah. So these are shorter games which are known for their story, and get praised for that. So
it is tough. I mean, like you look at Skyrim. Skyrim could be 30 hours, at the minimum, if you're just trying to level up, because there's that whole, like, you're doing what the main character of a movie does in the, the action montage or the training montage, if it's an 80s movie, if you will. Like, there, like, if you think, okay, if you compare, like, Skyrim and, let's say, Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger, like, all his practicing and his jousting and all that stuff, you're doing that by, like, going and getting materials and being a blacksmith and getting better weapons and training in combat and going and raiding caves and stuff like that. And then, but, like, they've taken all that stuff and cut it out, and hey, here's a 2.5 hour story. I don't even know how long it is, but whatever. Anyways, my point is, like, a game, you're doing basically everything a character in a movie would have to do. You know what I mean? Like, to reach your end goal. Like, if you want to beat the monster or the villain at the end of a game, you have to train and have to do certain things to get there. Whereas in, like, I feel like a movie, they can just kind of like, okay, you've been training for a while. Oh, 6 months later, just flashes across the bottom of the screen, and they're going to the competition or whatever, So,
and Matt, I agree with you with your comments on the narrative in Horizon Zero Dawn, and it would have been my game of the year, but when it came to for gameplay, definitely night and day, right? Gameplay in Horizon Zero Dawn's top notch, where, like you mentioned, it's not in Wolfenstein. Where the story fell apart for me in Horizon Zero Dawn was not necessarily in the overarching narrative, because I really enjoyed that and was able to follow that quite clearly. And this is my own problem with things like high fantasy and science fiction, is that because the names of things are super fictitious, the Banuk, it's like, and all the characters' names are like
the Goblet of Doom,
the blah 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 person. It's like my brain has a hard time drawing the path between, oh, this person said that, and oh, that he's referring to that person I saw in the last side quest.
Yeah.
And so it's really where, even though I had fun with the side quests in Horizon Zero Dawn, that's where the story fell apart for me, because it was like all this random person talking to a random person, and I couldn't like piece it together there. But the overarching story was phenomenal. So that's where I was. I just wanted to kind of add that context to where I was coming from, as in terms of why I kind of chose Wolfenstein versus Horizon Zero Dawn in terms of game of the year.
It's straightforward. There's not a lot.
So as you get older, game of the year choices are boiled down to less names, the better.
Hey, I'm lucky if I can remember to wear pants. Okay.
Well, I mean, to
no,
be fair,
your coworkers are lucky
That's true.
for you to wear pants. I don't care.
I mean,
as long as we're recording a podcast, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. I don't live anywhere near you, so it's okay.
All you see is a hoodie. The rest is up to your imagination.
T-shirt, exactly. T-shirt. I could be completely naked. You don't know that.
Hoodie.
New NGP podcast. Pants off, dance off. Let's do this.
Yeah. Jason,
Yeah, I was gonna say I was actually gonna do. You and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to our leader here, and I've got a whiny dog.
Yeah, Bagel, hot Bagel. For the listeners that don't know what that is, Bagel. Matt's
I mentioned
dog.
on NGP this week, Horizon was my game of the year, and more so different than other games. Like Wolfenstein boils down to it's a shooter. It's just a shooter. But unlike most shooters, the story in Wolfenstein, like both Jeff and Matt, like it really ramped up the story. Like the shock value. I don't remember a game where there was so many events that like actually shot. Like I was just like, what the fuck? Like the court scene, you play through it, which was so much fun. You get to kill like 300 different Nazis in that court scene, and then you realize it's just like a dream, and then your head gets chopped off, and you're like, you pause, you're like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Because then you can't tell. Wait, is this a dream? Was that real? Is this? And then you're like, and then it gets to the, like they took it to a ridiculous length, but it wasn't as ridiculous because then you look back on the, what the hell was that animal? The monkey cat, the rat.
You're talking about Set's mini Trico.
Yeah.
It's almost like it foreshadows it, and you're like, holy shit, this is ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So it does make up for the fact that it is a shooter. It didn't have any real mechanics that were like anything different.
Mm-mm.
I don't think it really added anything from the previous games that were. I mean, as I mentioned in the intro, you start in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And how many games can say you dual wield Uzis in a wheelchair?
That's true.
It's true. That is a good point. That is a good point.
Your move, John McClane. No, I will. Speaking on that sort of thing, the one thing in video games that people always sort of point to in terms of shooters, they always point at Half-Life for how it sort of changed the game. What I like about Wolfenstein, both the New Order and the new Colossus, I did not play the Old Blood. One thing I like, its use of first-person perspective, because they actually ham it up in both games in a way that I don't recall another first-person any game doing. Like, I mean, it's a lot in the first game where everyone sort of like gets real close to the camera, like in your face. And, Grant, we could talk about how, it doesn't look the best. It doesn't look super high. It doesn't look like Uncharted or even Horizon for that matter, which is a dumb argument. But the fact is that they're using that sort of mise-en-scène to convey perspective in a way that, like, these characters aren't there. BJ Blazkowicz is responding almost all the time when unless the times where he's just quiet, because sometimes he is. But for the most part, it's like Machine Games was using the villains to get in the player's head in a way that I don't remember another first person game doing. And I think, as Jason pointed out with like the beheading and like the dream sequences, and even the first one where you go to like Wolfenstein 3D for whatever reason, it uses a tool in a different way, and I think that should be applauded just as much as them leaning into their story in a very cool way.
I mean, the game is flawed if you really break it down.
Oh hell yeah!
I mean, there were, I think, 3 hours in. I think I even I said to myself, I'm like, wow, this part actually looks like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it almost. I mean, I don't have a PS4 Pro, but like it actually was blurry, but not like it was an effect. It looked like they skipped like the QA on that one scene. It was like, what the fuck just happened? And I mean, you mentioned the gunplay. I think we're spoiled because I think some games the gunplay just feels so much better that we're not used to it being. But I think Wolfenstein, it's supposed to be like reckless and all over the place when you really think about it. He's not like you're not going in headshotting.
Yeah,
all these guys. Like that's not the point.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
I know you didn't play Matt, but we all had just played Destiny fairly recently.
We were spoiled by that.
The gun.
Oh man, going from any Bungie game to this, yeah, that'll give you some motion sickness. That's for sure.
But then, actually, last night I started playing because Moose bet me that I could beat Strafe before him. Strafe's shooting's like Wolfenstein. It is all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You can't aim. Like you think you're aiming, you got to keep moving that crosshair.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like lock on shooting.
Yeah. Strafe is awesome, by the way. Great game. For the listeners out there, I'm the complete opposite of the three other people on this podcast. I struggle to play the game. I struggle to even care about the characters. I struggle to even like boot the damn game up to keep playing it. And I think it's partially because
he didn't have a trick weapon, right?
No, probably.
He didn't have a two-handed form. Yeah, no.
It's probably because I didn't play the first one, so I'm not familiar with the character, so I have no ties there.
Yep.
So I'm coming into the game. This is the first real entry in the series that I'm playing, even if going as far back as like the original Wolfenstein. This is the first Wolfenstein that I've played, and so like I fired it up and I started playing. I'll agree with you, Matt and Jason. Like the gameplay is horrendous. The shooting is horrendous, but I feel like that's the way they want it to be because you're just supposed to be a guy running around shooting a lot of shit. But then they like limit your bullet supply, so your bullets are limited. And then like even when you go back to your quote unquote hub, the sub, or whatever, your vessel, they don't refill your ammo for the next mission. So like I got to an end of mission, I had no ammo, all I had was the handgun, and the next mission I started and all I had was the handgun. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like that's ridiculous. So
I was wondering if anybody else came across that because the ammo depot in the sub, I believe you can use that to go to to refill and then go into a mission. I mean, I'm not calling you out, Moose, because but see, here's the thing. I never ran out of ammo because I figured out super early on that I didn't give a fuck about trophies in this game.
Well, yeah, neither do I. But yes.
So I played it on Can I Play Daddy? Because I wanted that story. I heard enough about the story. I'm like, I have to see this. So I went through specifically for that, and I don't feel any worse for wear. But every time I killed an enemy, like they were dropping full clips of ammo, so I never ran out.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know there was an ammo depot on the ship. That's the other thing. Like navigating the ship. Like, hey, listen, I just like.
They don't tell you a lot. They really don't.
No, like, and I don't feel like they need to tell you too much, but at least give me something that like can help me get to the next spot. Like they halfway give you waypoints. They only give you a waypoint in a mission, like when you've been running around aimlessly for a while, and you're like, and then they're like, okay, hey, go over towards this diamond. And you're like, okay, now I know where to go. Why couldn't you tell me that 15 fucking minutes ago?
It was kind of like Diablo, if you remember.
When
you're looking,
yeah.
And then eventually it's like, okay, we're tired of you running around this map.
Here's the yellow arrow. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's just like Diablo.
You walking death incarnate to anybody around you. Here's where you need to go, so you're not just wandering around a blank map.
Right. Like I would feel the hub to me would be more important if it was easy. Like I could navigate it more easily, or they would actually do a better job of helping me navigate it. So like,
the hub was massive. I mean,
and yes, it
it
is.
felt the way they did it with all the rooms. It was just like, what the hell is going on here?
Right. And they did a lot of good with the detail. Like, I'm gonna say,
did you ever feed the pig?
No, which I'm gonna go do now once I play. But here's my thing. This is my take on the game. For y'all and the listeners at home, I'm going to stop playing the game. I'm not going to touch the game until my fucking overtime ends, because I feel like my doing fucking 12 to 14 hours a day a week has weared and teared on me. And then not only that, but it affects me enjoying video games. So like Jason and Jeff like to make fun of me because I play Bloodborne a lot, and it's like, well, you know what? When I come home and I want to unwind, I want to play a game that I can just jump in and I know what I'm doing, and that's Bloodborne. You know, like I could just play it and have fun with it. I feel with Wolfenstein, my impatience to be able to get to something that I can enjoy makes me just want to be like, where do I go next? Where do I go next? I don't want to have to search for it. Where do I go next? The story's dragging on. Keep moving. Mm-hmm. So I feel I need to take a break from the game and not try and finish it. For those who are listening who have played it, I am up to the point where you are trying to break into Area 51. So you get the nuclear bomb in the fire extinguisher on your back.
Yeah.
And it's that first mission. So
you're like 2/3 of the way through it. You are not far from the end. It actually goes. Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to take a break from it, because I think it would be a disservice to the game for me to try and rush it now and just hate it. Kind of like what I did with Batman. Like when I was playing Batman Arkham Knight, I was just like, how long is this game going to fucking go on? Like just end. Just tell your story and end. And that, I also, like, while I was playing it, and, you know, we put it as a focal point, like, difficulty. Like, you played it on Can I Play Daddy? I played it on, I'm playing it on Can I Play Daddy? Because I'm like, I just want to experience the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel the game is, like, the upper, higher difficulties, it's just difficult. It wants to be difficult.
Yeah.
Like, it's not actually it's not like a Dark Souls game or a Bloodborne game where it's like, I'm a difficult game, but if you actually learn my game mechanics, I'm easier than freaking tying your shoe. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that. I don't feel this game does that. All it does is it ramps up the HP on the enemies and then
their damage.
Yeah, and their damage. That's it. It doesn't make them smarter. You know, and then that's a whole nother rant for, like, that's what I want on my next gen console is I want smarter fucking AI. I don't need resolution. Give me 1080p and give me fucking smarter AI any day of the week. But that's what I feel like the game does. They don't have intelligent AI. The AI is shit. And as it gets harder, your health, the damage you can take goes way down and their damage goes way up instead of making them actually smarter. And so I'm just like, I played like maybe 1 or 2 stages on what I thought was easy, but it was the next one up from Can I Play Daddy? And I thought that was easy. Jeff and I had a discussion about it. And he's like, yeah, I dropped it down all the way to, like, you know, easy mode. And then I was like, well, wait. I was like, Jason, you beat it. What did you play on? He's like, yeah, he's like, I played on, he's like, easy mode is Can I Play Daddy? I'm like, oh, I'm 1 level difficulty up from that. I'm definitely dropping it down to easy. You know? And so I was like, F this. But I feel like I don't care. Like I like BJ. He's a good character. I like some of the characters and shit, but I feel I would care more about them if I had played the first one. And then that's the whole, like, that, you know, because you have different kinds of sequels. You have sequels to games where you can jump into the game, and if you haven't played a previous entry in the series, and I'm not talking like Final Fantasy, where Final Fantasy, it doesn't fucking matter, but like you can jump into the game, not have played the first one, because let's admit it, it was probably a minor hit, and then everybody fucking loved it. It's a cult classic now, and everybody's pumped for the second one. Well, they realize that, and they say, okay, well, we're going to tell our story for the second one in a way that if you haven't played the first one, you'll know what's going on. And I don't feel that way with Wolfenstein, you know, and maybe that's just me taking away from it, but I don't feel like I'm getting a good backstory, like, on what happened in the first one, other than the fact that BJ got fucked up and shit's going sideways.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, along those lines, it's different as a sequel because it's literally
A sequel.
It's
Yeah,
like
that's what I thought.
It's not just let's recap what happened. Like the game starts with this. That happens when you beat
that. Yeah, that ended the first game.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like you have those different types of sequels. You have the sequels that just continues right after and it can't give you backstory, or you have a sequel where it's like maybe a month or two after. Like I'm sure Horizon Zero Dawn is an amazing game. I tell everybody that hasn't played it, fucking play that game. But I think the four of us can agree to the fact that when Horizon Zero Dawn, quote unquote, 2 comes out, they will do a pretty damn good job of catching you up on the previous story, just because they know they will have a lot of people that haven't played the game who have researched it once Horizon Zero Dawn 2 hits the interwebs. Once that announcement comes out or the rumors start coming out, people start researching the first game and they're going to know that, and they're going to be like, okay, we need to build it into our game. Okay, it's 3 to 6 months later, here's what happened. You know what I mean? So, as opposed to like Wolfenstein, where they were just like, we're just jumping right into it, and keep going. But then I feel like that's part of the series, just pedal to the metal, so I can respect that. I'm not trying to take away from the game. I'm just saying, like, my experience of the game, their pedal to the metal is, it's just not good for someone who has not played the series, and it being the first game of the series.
And well, I think the interesting thing about the two modern Wolfensteins is it's not a new story in that universe. Like, I feel like Wolfenstein 3D was basically this story without exposition. It was literally your pixelated BJ Blazkowicz because you could see his face at the bottom of the screen. You go kill anything that's in tan and then kill Robot Hitler at the end. Now it's just, okay, we're filling out the details. Like the Nazis won, and that's, and everything that's the conceit, and then everything is built around that. So I feel like if you played the New Order, which you didn't, you said that, like, no, you're getting essentially the same game you got in the early 90s, but it's just modern and with a proper
story
narrative, rather than just, hey, you're set loose in what looks like a castle, kill all the dogs because they're the worst, kill all the humans because they're the second worst, and then you fight Mecha Hitler at the end.
I wanted to make a comment on what you said, Moose, about like not knowing where to go for the missions. I mean, not only was that like an issue, at least initially for me, in the submarine, because it is so massive and all these tiny rooms and different ways to get from point A to point B, but overall the map system was atrocious in the game. I mean, it was horrible. Not just in the sub, but like, when there are points when you're in Manhattan and it's like you're trying to make your way through these burnt out buildings, and the map doesn't, tells you where the stairwells are, but it doesn't tell you whether you need to go up or down, and it's like you get all turned around and everything looks the same. But then I thought about it after a while, and this was more towards the end of the game, when I actually started to discover some of the side quests that are available in the submarine towards the end of the game.
Yeah, those are obtuse as hell too.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? Maybe the I think the map system was probably not. It was probably like an afterthought, but it was probably designed to be like not too descriptive, because, like, number one, they want you to explore the environments. And that's the primary way you're going to find all the collectibles, because there's like 9 million collectibles in this freaking game.
Yeah. There's Assassin's Creed level collectibles.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's like it's insane how many things there are. I didn't find any of Max's toys. Like, not one.
I didn't go looking for them.
I know. It was like,
I found some gold bars.
Yeah, I found a bunch of them. And like some Intel.
Intel, yeah.
But I think part of it was, part of being a little bit vague on the direction was they want you to explore the environment. They wanted you to stumble upon those NPC characters and listen to their banter back and forth to add to the narrative. They wanted you to find those standalone NPC characters that give out side quests and things like that to really kind of allow you to progress the game rather than it hand holding you through the process of go from point A to point B and check your tasks off this list.
Yeah.
And that's I ended up kind of appreciating it afterwards. But of course, like the mild OCD portion of me was like, oh God, I wish I knew where all the collectibles were. And then of course, when we talked about the difficulty, I started on medium and then I dropped it down to super easy baby mode during the courtroom scene, because I probably played that 10 times and just kept dying over and over again. And I was like, all right, now I'm starting to not have fun. So as soon as I drop
that's the other thing with the difficulty.
And even dropping into easy still presented a somewhat of a challenge, but it was much more enjoyable after that.
And
go
ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
I lost my train of thought.
Oh crap! I apologize. What I was gonna say was I feel like the difficulty with Bloodborne, like if I die in Bloodborne, it's my own fucking fault. Like I know that. Like even playing it over 300 hours, when I hop on and start up, when I jump into it, whatever character I'm playing, like I decide to play. If I go into a world and I'm going to do something, if I die, I know why I died. But like in Wolfenstein, it's not you. It's just the game being shitty.
Right.
You know, like Super Meat Boy. But Matt can attest to this. When you play Super Meat Boy, it's not the controls that kill you. It's not the game that kills you. You just, you didn't hit a jump right. You're not, if you know a level pretty well, you should be able to traverse it pretty well. But if you die, it's not because the controls were slow. It's not because the controls were bad. It was just because you did something wrong.
It's because you made the mistake.
Right. You made the mistake. I feel like Wolfenstein, when I played it and I was dying and dying and dying, I'm like, it's not me. I know I'm not the best at shooters, but I know I'm decent at shooters. Okay. Bare minimum, I'm decent at shooters. And so it is not me that's causing me to die. It's just the game being a bitch. And then, like you said, it makes it not want to be fun for me. That's the other factor. The difficulty was making it not fun for me. Even though I was killing Nazis, I'll shoot a Nazi in the fucking face any day of the week. I love to do that.
Any day that ends in Y, I'll shoot a Nazi.
I want to get back to Mafia 3 because I want to shoot some racists. But it's just... it was making me not have fun with the game. So that was compounding on my frustration with the game and just making me not want to play anymore. But Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say about after I dropped into easy baby mode, I realized that the map becomes a lot more useful at that point, because when you're in easy mode, it shows points of interest on the map, which are the locations of the collectibles. So for people who want to collect everything, that's the best way to do that. But
yeah, I remember you telling us that. Yeah.
To your point about dying, so specifically like with the courtroom scene, because it's just like this big octagon and you got like enemies coming in from all doorways and stuff,
and zero cover,
right? And cover that disintegrates as they continue to shoot at it, right? So it's like I think the problem with dying a lot in the harder difficulties is that because the game mechanics in terms of shooting are a little bit floaty and they're not lock on or precise, combined with the fact that a lot of the enemies are bullet sponges, you would be sitting there trying to lock on and aim and shoot at a guy, but meanwhile there's like 3 other dudes behind you that are shooting you in the back, and you have no idea that you're getting shot in the back because you're trying to aim and shoot at the guy in front of you, and it's like and the next thing you know, you're dead, right? So it's like, and you don't even feel like the guy in front of you that you're trying to kill is the one that killed you, and it's like, all right. So that's
I played most of the game on I Am Death Incarnate. I'm part glutton for punishment.
Golf clap, everyone. Golf clap.
I mean,
all right, everybody. Jason's dick is bigger than ours.
Well, I played Doom on the hardest difficulty because, and I spoke about it, that I felt it lended. That's how the game was meant to play. Like you're constantly moving. It's not a cover shooter.
Yeah.
So I played that way, but when you talked about Manhattan, you can't find where you're going, so you're trying to focus on where to go, and you keep getting attacked on that high difficulty level. It just became so frustrating that I did drop it down in difficulty because I was like, I can't focus on where to go because every time I figured out 20 guys come at me from upstairs and downstairs, and I have to stop, and then I lose my place, and I have to try to navigate again, and then all of a sudden there's more guys. It's like they never stop spawning. So I felt the difficulty spikes were, because for a first-person shooter, it wasn't linear at all. Like it was almost open world the way the levels were. Like, which was weird for a Wolfenstein game. Like,
because you can just roam around the world.
I mean, there were a couple stages like the train. You can go up and down, but you were still limited in one direction. But like Manhattan, that the nuclear facility towards the end.
Yeah, I'm okay. Now I'm with you. Now
they're like all of a sudden it's like which way? Like you can get to the location in like 20 different ways to go there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially after you get to pick your device, right?
Yeah, your perk or whatever.
Yeah. What did everyone pick?
So I picked the thing that constricts you, so you can go into the smaller spaces.
I picked the charge because just going through doors was fun, and exploding Nazis was because the charge special. If you ran at a Nazi full speed, they would blow up.
I wanted to pick that, but I accidentally picked Battle Walkers.
So we all picked something different. Wow, that's great.
And let me tell you, for anybody who hasn't played the game but might listen to this because I don't care about spoilers, whatever you do not pick the Battle Walkers. They're not good. They're not. I mean, it's in theory, it's a cool idea to be able to get to higher spots and go over things. In any sort of game, like, take the high ground. In Wolfenstein, it was not great.
When I heard Battle Walkers, I kept thinking,
I have the high ground.
Yeah. But when you have the high ground, you are also high up, and then everybody sees you on top of what you're on, and then they just shoot you.
For some reason, I kept thinking Dishonored, the tall boys.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. And you just played the first one recently, so that probably helped. So.
Just to kind of make a comment on what Jeff was talking about with like the map system, I kind of agree. I didn't figure out the map system till I was literally in like the last 3 or 4 missions. And I didn't really feel like I needed it outside of like 4 or 5 spots, like in missions. But one thing I know, like just because of my experience in film and whatnot, and really dissecting certain movies, if you have a movie that takes place in a tiny location, like I'll just throw one out there. I don't know if everybody's seen it, but whatever. Alfred Hitchcock's Rope. It takes place in like 3 or 4 rooms in an apartment. The cool thing about that is the audience develops a knowledge of that space. And you would think on a submarine, despite its size, you could start to figure out, oh, okay, Anya and BJ is this room, Grace is over here. Because it's not exactly super open, but it's not, Eva's hammer is not a small sub.
Right. For fuck's sake, spoilers, they had Nazis hiding in it and they didn't even know. So,
yeah, exactly. Like,
it's pretty large, but it should become recognizable. But anyway,
there should be a familiarity, like where you're walking down a corridor and you just have enough of a landmark that's not a nameplate next to a door. You're gonna be like, oh, I'm right here. Seth's workstation is going to be here in his lab. And I never got that familiarity with any of the common areas. But in the New Order, I guess that bunker you're in for most of the game until you take over the sub. I felt like that was pretty easy to navigate. It was not, I didn't end each mission in complete unfamiliarity of my home base. And I feel like there was that aspect was missing from
Yeah,
New
even
Colossus.
if you took a shortcut or the hidden doorways in New Order, you could figure out where you were
Mhm.
shortly after. But like I felt it's easier. Like you play 5 hours with Grand Theft Auto, you know which streets turn into which streets to get back to your base. This
Exactly.
it's a sub, and I still couldn't figure out like if the mission said, "Oh, go find Set" or go find
Wyatt.
the Scotsman Wyatt. It was like,
oh, you had Fergus? Okay.
I had Fergus.
Okay, I had Wyatt.
I think I had Fergus. I think I talked to
Blasco.
Jeff. Yeah, me and Jeff couldn't figure out who. We had the same character and we couldn't figure it out. He loses his arm. Was that
Yeah,
Fergus?
that's Fergus.
That's Fergus, yeah.
That's Fergus.
I couldn't figure out where the hell the bar was. And I was like, I ran past this like 30 times, and I could never figure out. No, you got to go down a level, then around. I'm like,
Oh yeah. Well, in mine, I had a mission where I had to go talk to Horton in the cantina, and I'm like, "There's a cantina on this sub."
Exactly.
Like I know where the hidden Nazis were. I can find that. But where I mean, I'm sitting there thinking logically that makes sense. You'd probably want somewhere you could eat when you're on a goddamn submarine.
Yeah.
But you know, like I'm like you're not exposed to that prior to that. Okay, but I feel like we're spending a lot of time bagging.
okay. Favorite moment.
Yeah, because like let's really get into this story, because like this story inserted itself into a moment of the year category in a way that no game did this year.
You could start. What's your
Okay.
favorite moment
My favorite,
or scene or like?
there's too many. I mean, one of my favorites is when you get to New York and you've met Grace, and you start evacuating everybody there, and then you basically have to sort of let them get on. You have to let them get to the chopper, and you have to basically do a horde mode of killing Nazis. BJ's cutscene right before that, he's like, "All right, you white Nazi bastards, come and get me." I'm like, "All right, this is where BJ stole my heart a little bit." But like there are tons of really cool moments in this game. I mean, if no one mentions the end, I feel like we should talk about that, because that's a really cool goddamn ending. The credit sequence, not so much, but the ending up until that is really cool. But yeah, like that is the part where I was like, all right, no matter what, I'm finishing this game. Like this game has earned my time to see it through. Jason.
I liked how fleshed out they made the villain, what was her name?
Engel.
How
Engel.
evil she was, and it like for me it culminated where she shoots super special and like laughs about it.
Yeah.
How, like,
Yeah.
like she walked in and like shot him in the back of the head and like was laughing like that. They thought, oh, you thought you'd get away with it, and like I was like, this woman is twisted.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's mental.
What
But
I
I
loved
mean,
about
right from the beginning, she cuts Caroline's head off, and you're
Mhm.
like, "What the fuck?" You're like, "Did that just happen?"
Yeah.
What I loved about her character was, this would be like stuff that Moose you wouldn't get out of it, was like what happened between BJ and her in New Order and everything.
Oh shit! Yeah. Oh hell yeah!
That's where the whole like a lot of stuff happened between the two of them during that game, and the whole scene. The reason why she has all those scars on her face is because of BJ, right?
Yeah, he fucked her up, probably.
Yeah,
right?
he fucked her up proper.
Like really ripped her whole. And she's like talking to him and stuff, like with her jaw gaping out, and it's like, and then you flash forward to. And I think I'm trying to remember the sequence, but I think it was actually right before she cuts his head off, right? And she's like, "We would have been so good together." Like, and it was almost like she was admitting that she almost like
Loved him.
While she's been trying to kill him the whole time, she actually loves him, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
And that scene in the diner reminded me of the Nazi from Inglorious Bastards in the basement.
Can
Which
we
one
talk
are
about
you
that for
which
a
one are you
hot
talking
fucking
about? The one in
second?
New
Milkshake.
Order or the one in?
In New Colossus, the milkshake.
Can we talk about that for a hot fucking minute? Because when that scene happened and they go downstairs, I'm like, there's a dead Nazi upstairs. Nobody's gonna clean it up. Nobody's gonna try and hide the fucking hidden base downstairs. Okay. All right, I'm done.
Now, wait, hang on. Before you really get on this sort of nitpicking, let's talk about how completely ironcladly disorganized Super Spesh is.
No. I understand that. And I get that. It's just that is a huge. I'm like, that guy was called somewhere else, realizes who BJ is, and he gets his brains blown out. It's like, okay, well, he just got called in, so you would think somebody would know he's missing, and it's just like, okay, no. In Nazi America, or Nazi occupied America, where nobody's gonna realize that he's gone. Nobody saw that through a window. They just turn the sign over and kind of lock the door and go downstairs, and it's like, what'd you do with the Nazi? Did you clean the blood up? I mean, what is going on? Like,
I mean, the guy had a strawberry milkshake, so
yeah,
that's where all the red is.
Anyways, I just thought that scene was just like kind of broke immersion for me, because I'm like, I understand they're trying to get to the point where you're trying to like break into Area 51, but it's just like, okay, you could have did a job of where they had to like clean up after that, or like he calls in some people to like,
or just a line of dialogue. Hey, let's clean this up real quick.
Yeah, and then goes dark, and then it lights up, and they're down in the bottom talking. Like, okay, that's fine. I can deal with that, but just to completely and nonchalantly just start talking about secrets and hey, here's my hidden base inside Nazi occupied America. And it's just like, okay, nobody gives a fuck.
I mean, I feel like you're grasping at straws, Moose, but I like your thought. I like your thought process. I really do.
As much as I wish there was boss fights, I did like that each big turning point chapter had like this big fight scene with some cool like epic
piece of technology of some sort,
or like a movie kind of explosion type, like the Manhattan where he jumps out of the building into the helicopter.
Yep.
Or like
Matrix style.
Yeah, it was like, so that I love that in Manhattan where he has to run and leap into the building as they're shooting it up.
Yeah.
But there were no boss fights, which was weird. It kind of felt like levels would just end, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
So
it's weird.
Well, see, that's probably better than bad, because in New Order, the boss, the Death's Head boss fight was good, but first-person shooter boss fights generally aren't great.
No, because you fight something that's a bullet sponge, and you just keep going and going.
It's like, instead of having to do 10 bullet shots on every little enemy, you have to do 2,000 bullet shots on this giant thing that has massive weapons that can kill you.
I think if we're going to talk favorite moments in the game, mine is actually a continuous one, or one that can happen quite often, and that's killing Nazis with melee.
Man, yeah, good call.
So that is one of my favorite moments, and that made me want to keep playing the game. It's just like
the combat
chop the leg out, and then just poof, right in the chest. You're just like, haha, motherfucker.
I had that perk upgraded first, because I don't think I shot anything for 3 chapters. I just kept killing them that way.
My favorite melee moment, and I was only able to recreate it maybe 2 or 3 times. BJ literally taps on the guy's shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
And then he turns around and you
hatchet to the head.
Damn, that's awesome. So the hatchet part, and then when you get the suit in the beginning, because he's broken and beaten, and it's he has this moment you know, where he's like, if I don't do this, if I don't grab this and get this going, like I am dead here. So it's like a good fight for survival and a good storytelling way to get him maybe not back to zero where he's the old BJ, but closer to where the needle hit zero than where he was, because he's still a broken shell of a man inside the armor that's moving his body, that he's not, you know, he's telling it to move, whereas in not like regularly in the first game where he's telling his body to move, you know what I mean? Like, so I thought that was a pretty cool scene, and they opened it up pretty well, like with the killing of Caroline and setting up like a reason for him to keep doing what he's doing, even though he is quote unquote a broken man. And like he says, he thinks he's like on his deathbed, he's gonna die, you know, all that kinds of stuff. So I thought that was a favorite moment of mine. Jeff, did you have any favorite moments?
Oh, a ton. So in the opening scene, no, so, I actually, you know,
minute 5:15.
we touched upon it before. Obviously, you know, when the game starts, you're in a wheelchair. I mean, this kind of harkens to gameplay as well, but just like it really felt good playing that. Like from a control perspective, it just felt cool playing from the perspective of a wheelchair. But the first thing right away that I think of in terms of the shock value, of course, and I think we all chose Fergus to save Fergus, right?
I had Wyatt.
You did have Wyatt? Okay.
Which one's Fergus? Fergus
is the Scotsman.
Scotsman, yeah.
I say the guy with the ear issue. Wait, no, that's probably I don't know who I saved.
I think that's Wyatt, actually. The younger looking kid? The younger kid?
Yeah, I saved Wyatt then.
Okay. So I think
I mean, he had the best. I mean, like Fergus in the New Order, Fergus was like the one that was he would be worth it in a fight. But I think Wyatt had like the better story value in the first one because you got Jimi Hendrix.
So you guys made your decisions based on the first one. I just picked a motherfucker.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyways, continue, Jeff. Sorry.
But no, this would be interesting because we don't like obviously Jason, you picked Fergus too, right?
Yeah.
So Jason and I had Fergus. You should probably had Wyatt. So like I don't know what the differences were, where the story deviates.
There's a weapon that's different.
Okay, but everything else is the same.
I believe for the most part. I don't know what happened. Like after the party, what happened? Like Fergus for us got really drunk and lost his hand.
No,
he lost his arm early in the game.
Or no, but the mechanic.
Are you talking about the birthday party or?
Yeah, the birthday.
Oh, see, I didn't have any of that. Wyatt went off the reservation.
Yeah, he dropped a bunch of acid again and then disappeared.
He's like, I can't deal with this. I don't want to be the leader. And he's like listening to old recordings of.
He's listening to Jimi Hendrix from the first game.
Yeah,
right. That makes sense now because this is what when I finished the game. I'm like, wait a minute. I remember during like all the trailers we saw during E3 and all this stuff, they were doing the acid trip and all this stuff, and I didn't see that at all in the game.
So it's why, he goes off the reservation a little bit, and then
the game again.
So I will also say one of my favorite moments was when BJ met Grace. So like coming up that elevator shaft. And he's just like, I'm not a Nazi. And the guy's like, would you say Nazi? Did you say Nazi? You were a Nazi?
What did he say? He's like, he grabs him and he's like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she's like, got the live grenade. But anyways, I thought that was a good scene. But when she gets on the ship, like Wyatt kind of like steps back and like kind of lets her like take over. Because like when he's drinking and doing his acid trip and kind of listening to the old headphones, because he's going through boxes like trying to find headphones when I think you're supposed to go do the mission for the to find the Nazis in the lower parts of the sub, and you're like trying to go talk to him to like be like, you know, get your fucking shit in order, and he's trying to find those headphones, and so you find them for him, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, you go about your way, and he's just sitting there with his headphones on, kind of like they just look just like my, you know, except old style and over the ear, and he's just sitting there listening to the old recordings, and it's like, he's lost. He's not. I mean, he's a good guy, good character, but he's not going to be a good leader. And so he like when Grace comes on, he kind of like calls her boss lady. You know, like when you're going to do the mission to go into Area 51, he's like, hey, boss lady, you know, what's going on? And then, you know, she's like, this is what we got going on. So-and-so's here, you know, at the restaurant, and this is, you know, all this is happening. And so
that's wild.
It would be interesting to see the other way.
Yeah, so Fergus...
I think and just on top of that, BJ's balls eventually do drop, Moose. Like he eventually steps up in a very, very cool way.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Fergus loses. He gets a mechanical, like a robot arm, and at the birthday party he loses it, and they can't find it. And there's like a flashback to it keeps malfunctioning, and I guess he goes to like talk to this girl, and he smacks her.
He wants to like give her a flower or something.
Yeah.
Tell her that he really loves her. And then he like grabs her boob with the arm.
So he gets pissed.
Which girl? Like, is it one of the people from the South, or is it?
It's one of the. It was a foreign girl. It was like
it's not Sigrun, is it?
No.
Okay.
So the So basically,
how about that scene when when they're having sex in the submarine?
That was one of my things. Was like when they all they want to go in this mini sub, and then the black guy and
Bombate and Sigrun.
They're like, it's like, you need to use the submarine now.
Well, like that. I mean, that whole Sigrun thing. One of my favorite characters in the game, because I feel like they develop it. In the minor snippets you get, they develop a whole character. Like at the beginning, you see Sigrun getting body shamed by her mother, right? Which, you know, that tells something in its own. And her mother, spoilers as we're here, is Engel, the villain. And then you have everybody that comes onto the sub and notices that she's German. They all call her Nazi.
Yeah. Even though she's like completely.
She's completely like helping you and like, and then, you know, I feel like I don't know how much different I would be in those times either. But then, you know, after the sex scene and then the party scene that Moose and I had, well, at least I know because we had Wyatt go off the reservation. But like Sigrun is looking for Bombate, and he's talking up a skinnier, you know, quote unquote prettier female, and that sort of reflects back to everything you've seen Sigrun go through. And then like shortly after that, Grace lays into her. It's like, you know, why should we trust them? Effing Nazi. And then she just says, you know what? I'm sick of you. You don't get to call me a Nazi anymore. Chokes out Grace. And then basically
good for her.
And then basically looks at Bombate and says, you know what, motherfucker? I'm in love with you, and it pains me that you are too stupid to know. So from now on, you don't get any more, but I will think about you to satisfy myself from now on. And there's nothing you could do to stop me. And I'm like, fucking good for you, Sigrun. Good for you. You go. Yeah. And then like, and she's like, okay, so how do I get off this ship? And then Grace is like, no, you're coming with us. And I'm like, all right, that was just such a cool arc in that game.
Yeah, two more things that come to mind that I just wanted to mention it before we talk a little bit about the ending and stuff was all the scenes that between BJ and his father, all the flashback scenes when BJ was a kid.
Oh man, that's horrifying.
Dude, that is horrifying. I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah, and all the way up into the point where BJ meets his father in real life again, and you're just like, oh, how is this gonna end? You know, it's like, oh. And you end up, you know, obviously killing your father and getting a trophy for it. Whoop.
Yep.
Sweet. You deserve
pretty awesome.
Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Player wins with a trophy. BJ wins killing his dad. And fuck that guy.
Of course. And of course, like making you shoot his own dog at the beginning. That was crazy.
I refuse to shoot that dog. I didn't. I'm not aiming anywhere near that dog.
No, I didn't either. I'm like, because we got that. I was like, nope. I'm like, I turned the gun up to the corner and shot, and then you know.
I'll be the first person to admit that Bagel here is small and weird, but he is cute as hell. And you know, and I love dogs. I if it were a cat, I might have killed it. I'll just be real. But
I would have killed it.
I cannot bring harm to a dog. I just cannot do it. I'm like, that's the end for me.
His father is Aaron Pierce from 24.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron Pierce, he was always like he was always the presidential's like head Secret Service guy.
Okay.
Good, I mean, and stellar performance from that actor. I will say that I mean, every performance in this game is actually done masterfully.
The other thing that comes to mind is, and it's not a shocking moment or anything like that, but immediately after BJ loses his head and his consciousness comes back and his head's inside the jar of liquid, and everybody's outside looking at him, talking to him. Oh, he's awake, blah blah blah. And the characters start to like step back and walk away, and the squirrel monkey cat thing.
Oh man,
it just comes up and it's like looking at him like through the glass, and I'm like, this is like a
hey brother, how you doing, buddy?
It's like a
welcome to my world now.
It's like so funny. It's like such a Disney moment though, just the look on its face, like, oh, look at you in the glass. It's like, it was so funny. Oh, love. I mean, just there's so many like little moments, character moments that there's like.
Anybody want to talk about young BJ at all with Billy?
Oh yeah.
Like now, I've heard fan theories posit that that's Billie Holiday. The game doesn't really go anywhere near that, but
interesting. Yeah.
But like, I figured I'd just throw that out there.
Yeah, what's interesting is like, where is it going with this? Like, why is it showing all? I mean, obviously, it's giving you the additional backstory around the previous initial scenes with BJ's mother and the father, is saying how he doesn't want BJ hanging out with her.
Yeah,
and you end up finding out that actually seeing them hanging out together to get that additional context, which was really cool. Bring that storyline full circle.
Well, yeah, because his father made comments about his mother being a Jew, and then he's like, you're hanging out with that colored girl. Yeah. Well, he chooses a different word, but I'm not going to say that. Right. This is my own thing. And yeah, such a good story, such a well written, well developed story. It really is.
Did you
despite all of the complete and utter nonsense in it, it's like really, it's done really well.
And before we go into the ending, there was that other fan theory that Wolfenstein and Doom share the same universe. That the weapons, the energy weapons at the end, use Argent energy. And if you look, the explosion from that one weapon that vaporizes everything is the same as in Doom, the power-ups that you pick armor, health, or ammo.
One can only hope.
I was like, that is awesome.
One can only hope.
Imagine that as a co-op. Pick the Doom Marine or BJ Blazkowicz and just blast through shit.
Either or. I'd do either or. As a horde mode, it'd be great. It'd be great. And then, I'll just start leading us into the ending if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
How about Anya?
Oh my God, that scene!
How about Anya? Freaking, pregnant woman. Jumping off helicopters. Freaking go you, lady. And then, but the climax is they figure out that Engel is going on national TV. If anyone wants to start,
no, you can't leave the Anya scene that barren. We got to talk about that full. Anya
okay, if you want to, we can do that. Let's do it.
Because Moose has not seen it, man.
Go, Jeff.
Like, literally, BJ is like completely vulnerable to being killed, and there is Anya, and she's pregnant, jumps and saves him, like knocks him out of the way. It lands on top of him with her belly down on top of him, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like has blood all over. She rips her shirt off. It's completely topless, covered with blood, and is like like this, blowing everybody away with her boobs. It's like, what the hell is going on?
It is that shit.
Moose, I just linked it. Go watch it. You start at 4 minutes and 13 seconds. We want your reaction.
Yeah. You got to see.
You need to see how
All
cool
right,
this
all right.
fucking thing is.
All right, 4 minutes
amazing.
and 13 seconds. Give me a second. I'm going.
This is great. Oh, I was just.
Continue talking. Continue talking.
I mean, yeah. Oh, it's so good. It's like all the promise of the movie Blade put in a retro future Nazi movie. It's great.
I mean, I just kept thinking throughout the entire time playing the game, like, God, I wish this was a movie. Like, if they could just make this game into a movie, it would be so awesome. Because it just had that character dynamic every 2 seconds. Was great.
I mean, I know this is predominantly a PlayStation show, and I know from what I recall, you guys all love Uncharted. Fuck Uncharted. Make Wolfenstein a movie. Like that will do more for video game movies than Uncharted ever will.
Yep.
Oh
man, it was.
I'm just looking at his face.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking badass.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, my jacket's on fire. I'll just be completely naked.
Yeah, she's like, yep, put this out.
That's
He picks up the guns and such fire.
It's like the dual wielding pregnant woman equivalent of here, hold my beer.
That's awesome. That was awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, one thing about that, right before that scene, there's like a huge battle right on the outside of the ship, and Grace and I were talking about that whole. You know, we don't have to go deep into talking about Mein Leben mode because we did that.
Fuck that.
NGP episode, but just thinking about like how close you are to the end of the game at that point, and how brutal that fight would be in Mein Leben mode.
Oh
to,
God!
like, make it that far into the game and then die because of that scene, I'd just be like, oh my God.
Well, that's essentially the final fight. You clear that, you're done.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like that's the last real fight you're in. I mean, going into the final scene, we find out that Angle is going to be on national TV, something very akin to Johnny Carson.
Mm-hmm.
And Sigrun steps up. She helps you disarm her security, and you basically take her security ship to where the show is, and you go in and you kill her. But it's so much more than that. As you're climbing around the show set, you hear Engel's dialogue with it's Carver. It's something Carver. But it's a 2-syllable name that begins with a J because Johnny Carson, but his last name is Carver. And you hear this everything that comes out of Engel's mouth makes you hate her even more because she's saying, oh, I always really loved my daughter. I don't know what happened to her. And you're like, no, you didn't, you lying bitch. You were body shaming her at the beginning. You were basically this close to killing her at one point. And you're talking about, oh, she had a bit of a weight issue and she was trying to get better. Like, no. You don't know. It made that scene so much more satisfying when you see that hatchet just split her face in half.
Awesome.
But like, I feel like it has to be mentioned that they're basically referencing the movie Network with that entire scene. I mean, kind of with even Grace's character, because the counterculture, like, I don't remember if she's an anarchist in the movie, but Grace basically looks like that woman. If you haven't seen Network, directed by Sidney Lumet, you should. It's a great goddamn movie. Holds up to this day. But like, I also took interest that instead of doing an actual audience, because you think in a Nazi-controlled America, they would be able to plant an audience, but all you see are cardboard cutouts.
Right.
and I don't remember if the band that was there is actually real, because I don't remember seeing them move, or maybe they actually move when they figure out, oh, you're there and you don't belong there.
Right.
But yeah, that final scene is so good.
Yeah, I was actually expecting that whole sequence to last longer than it did. I wasn't expecting it to end quite as quickly. I thought there'd be a little bit more interaction or a little more of a fight. But I wasn't. I wasn't like deterred. Like wasn't like, oh man, I wish it was more. But it's just like, wow, that ended quickly.
He fucking buries that hatchet in
Oh, yeah.
place. It's in there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. you see skull part.
I can't believe we haven't even mentioned Hitler.
Oh, that's right.
We fucking well, no, that's another fucking thing I forgot. Because the director, Helena, that's Leni Riefenstahl.
Yeah.
Like, that's a direct reference. Now, for those who don't know who Leni Riefenstahl is, she directed a whole bunch of propaganda films for the Nazi Party. One of them, the most famous one is actually called Triumph of the Will. And it is in the pantheon of movies like Birth of a Nation, where the content in the film is actually quite deplorable by today's standards, but the way the film is made, and I actually agree with this, is influential and good. They're well made, but you do not agree with any of it. Like Birth of a Nation is a 3.5-hour silent film where the KKK saves the day. It was made in 1915, and it's kind of responsible for how movies have been made since. Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will is kind of responsible for how documentaries have panned out. Both of them are silent and are very difficult to watch. Not because they're silent films, but because of what you see. Right. And it is hard to reconcile the content or it's hard to separate the content and the craft. But when you're able to do that, you can kind of draw the influence and see what happened after. But fucking Hitler in this game. Like, and it's not just like, oh, we see some guy that looks like Hitler. No, we get dialogue and personality out of that. And I think it sets up the third game because
I was just going to ask that. Does it set up?
It sets up the third game in such a good way because you see him, he's getting sick. And he's vomiting.
Yeah.
I mean, which as someone who works in healthcare, you see what that could mean. It could mean the man had too much to drink last night, but at his age, I highly doubt that it's a hangover. I think it's something more systemic. And I think that's probably why we're going to get Mecha Hitler in the third game. Which, if they don't, it's a missed opportunity.
Well, did either of you kill Hitler?
Can you?
Yeah, I didn't know if you.
When he's laying on the floor, there's a prompt, and you basically can like curb stomp his face.
I didn't know
but
that.
Then you die. You get attacked immediately and die. You can't fight it.
It's a game over state. Oh man, I wish I would have known that.
Yeah, I didn't know.
But like he's laying there. And like you could turn and just like she tells you, "Oh, Mr. Redfield, go over here." And if you turn towards Hitler, you can basically like stomp on his head.
I would love to American History X Adolf Hitler.
Is that before you go into the glass room?
No, after, like, because I guess Hitler has that coughing fit after he's like amazed at what you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that guy will be the perfect BJ Blazkowicz. Spoiler alert, I am BJ Blazkowicz.
Oh, that's awesome.
But you can't if you kill him, but then it's like a game over. But it's like it's satisfying to just like kick him.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's worth the game over.
Yeah.
So, nice.
I have to play that game again. I'll do it with Fergus and I'll curb stomp Hitler. Great.
Well, actually, now I'm more inclined to play just for the other mini storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Wyatt.
Yeah. Well, they did that in the first game too. Like if you saved Fergus, you got someone who could definitely hold his own in battle.
Well, I think the difference in the first game was also a weapon. It was either the laser or you could hack the consoles.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
the lockpick or the
it was. You're right. But I feel like they built in two cool paths based on their options, and which is something most games don't do.
Do the three of you feel that Bethesda has done a good job of resurrecting both Doom and Wolfenstein
Hell
as
yeah.
far as shooters
definitely.
go when they bought id?
Yes.
No, definitely.
I personally, I never played Doom 3, and I kind of had an interest in it, but it kind of almost seemed like they were breaking away from their traditional gameplay because they added, from what I understand, you have to have a flashlight. So you always have to put the flashlight down to use the gun. So it kind of added a mechanic to it that kind of broke away from what Doom was traditionally, kind of like how I guess Resident Evil 5 and 6 broke away from what Resident Evil was. Now they've come back to it with Resident Evil 7. They've kind of gone, way off the other side of the spectrum to come back to like, here is what Resident Evil was and what it should be. So you guys feel that they've done a pretty good job of
Doom from
rebooting the series.
Yeah, Doom from last year is the best Doom since Doom and Doom 2.
Because I feel like we can't talk about Wolfenstein without talking about Doom.
Oh yeah.
Just because they're both the same company, id or ID, whatever you want to say. And now they're under Bethesda, and you kind of, I feel so. I'm not too up to par with Doom, the current Doom. Was it done by id? Is it still a developer, or did they sell and they're out of here?
Well, I know. Well, I think the way it works is Bethesda is. I think Bethesda is actually owned by ZeniMax.
Yeah.
Yes.
And ZeniMax bought id.
Okay. So then, Bethesda's just the publisher. So
ZeniMax I think is the publisher. Well, no, Bethesda would be
not a Bethesda game.
It's Bethesda Softworks did publish it. Id developed it.
So it
was the not like old school traditional id, but actually id was the developer. Okay, so that's good to know. So that's pretty cool to see them to be able to Bethesda to be like, listen, we bought you. Let's get this thing going. Let's do this. And in all honesty, I liked Doom. I need to play more of it because I agree it's not a get in cover, do this stuff. You have to keep moving. You have to get those fatalities, get those kills to keep your kill count going, to keep your health regeneration going. And so it's a much faster paced shooter. So I want to get back to that and play that again. But I feel personally reviews and what I've played of the games, just they've done a tremendous job of bringing the series maybe not up from the ashes, because I don't think they were completely destroyed. They were just in a state where it's what's going on? You know what I mean? I feel before New Order came out, I don't feel like Wolfenstein was on a lot of gamers' radar.
What was Wolfenstein?
Right. A lot of people are like, oh, Wolfenstein was Wolfenstein, the old ones on.
They had that
Xbox.
one that one from 2009.
Yeah, they had those old school ones, and you're just like, okay.
Doom had that BFG edition on consoles.
Do you think it was the perfect marriage because Bethesda does a good job with helping develop stories? Or do you feel because they got the Elder Scrolls and Dishonored's a good story.
Doom's story is not bad. It's overlooked because it's just a fun shooter, but it's nothing amazing. But it's serviceable and it's a good complement to the sheer action.
I think I've heard that Doom's story, you basically have to buck what the Marine wants you to do to actually understand it, because the Marine half the time is just I don't care. Just get me on to the next part. So the Marine
Doom guy's a straight up asshole. He always has been.
He gives the finger in the beginning to his reflection.
Yep.
Yeah, right, exactly. So he doesn't care about the story, but the story is still there. It's just not I feel it's not told to you in a traditional way where you are this is the story. Okay, so now I must pay attention. It is there as an undertone, and you as the player can have to either find a way to pick up on it, or just skip it all to get, not pick up on it, and then find it in a video saying, oh yeah, there's a great story there if you actually pay attention, so.
I feel like the way that Doom, I'm not sure if Doom's story is actually a story, so much as it is like just a character study in not giving a fuck. I mean, sure, we could sit here and jokingly say, you know, I'm not sure who gives less of a fuck, Doom Guy or Honey Badger, but
it'd probably be Doom Guy.
Yeah, but like at the same time, you could walk through that and just sort of look for all of the elements that sort of build out the character of Doom Guy and glean something from that. But it's not like, it's like the stories in like Bloodborne and Dark Souls. It's not a beginning, middle, end narrative. It's like you're pulling together pieces to gain a picture of the world you're in, rather than saying, you know, once upon a time there were old ones.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And I feel like through and that's another, I mean, that's probably a cool way to do interactive stories, like in video games as a concept, rather than going super narrative. I mean, it's also kind of like you don't get a lot from BJ in the New Order, at least not near as much as you get in the new Colossus.
Right.
And because when the New Order came out, everybody made like the big online publications that most of us are familiar with. Like I think Polygon spent more than 3 or 4 articles talking about how BJ Blazkowicz is one of the worst characters because of one line in the New Order, and that's like, "Wake up, you're dead." You know, it's just like, yeah, but that's what BJ Blazkowicz comes from.
He's old school, and you're trying to bring him new school.
I mean, you know? BJ Blazkowicz and Duke Nukem are cut from the same cloth.
Right, exactly.
The one thing is Duke Nukem ended up just staying an asshole. He ended up staying a machismo, testosterone-driven asshole, where BJ was given through writing the ability to look at his world and have an opinion on it. That wasn't necessarily what that world thought it should be. And like, you know, very much like the Doom Guy's a character study and not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
But then again, that's also bringing it back to id. That's what the id is in psychology, I believe. And for those of you who want a concept of what the id is, think of Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5. He is the id of that game. So,
does not give a fuck.
Yeah. Anybody want to talk about Wyatt's speech at the end? Or actually, no, Jeff and Jason probably didn't get Wyatt's speech, did you?
So no, we got Fergus's speech.
What was Fergus's speech?
So, to be honest, I could not recite it for the life of me. But I mean, it was, you know, it was one of those kind of like, if he keeps going on like this, we're gonna have to drag him away from the camera type.
Yeah, one of those things.
It's like so overhyped, and he was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah. But yeah,
is this basically at the end of the game, like kind of like ceremonial speech, or is it like before the end scene?
So no, it's after they kill Engel, and the TV cameras are still rolling, and
and he's there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're all there.
They're all there.
He gives a speech to like Nazi occupied America, to the camera.
Yeah, so each of them kind of goes up and says, you know, we're starting the revolution. Everybody's got to raise, you know, step up, and this is where we're going to turn the tides.
Do their bit.
And after they do their serious speech, he's kind of like comes in and just kind of barrel rolls this whole like blah, 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 verbal diarrhea, and it's like,
I'm from Scotland.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, I thought Wyatt's was I liked Wyatt's speech. I genuinely do, mainly because, you know, he it's clear he's on acid while he's doing it, which is fine. But he says, you know, when the Nazis come to sow the wind, they have to reap the whirlwind. We are the whirlwind. And you know, I think it's cool that it led into a remake of Twisted Sisters. We're not going to take it. But I think they could have done better with the closing credit sequence. I thought the visuals in it were nice. The pictures of rebellion were cool, but I feel like that speech is gonna go completely under people's radar. I think that speech is very well written, at least Wyatt's. I don't know what happened on the Fergus timeline. Jay?
Like Jeff, he started just rambling, and it was like I didn't know. And then just their classic remade as a death metal kind of was like.
I mean, it was more metal than the Twisted Sister version, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I could sit here and say they could choose better, but I don't have an answer to what that is. But
if they wrapped up Wolfenstein, I mean, I think it's a good trilogy. I'd love to see more, but I think it was a good. But obviously, they can make another one with Hitler or.
No, there's. I mean, Old Blood isn't necessarily the middle of this. I don't think.
No,
it's cool.
I think New Colossus is the middle, and then we'll get a threequel, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
For those who've played all of them, how would you rank the three?
Yeah, so I played all three. I feel at this point that I like Colossus the best, then New Order, then Old Blood. I think Old Blood, I mean, while it was short, which is fine, doesn't need to be long. It had some kind of cool elements to it. The whole zombie Nazi aspect of it, I think, was kind of cool to introduce. But it was pretty much straightforward and not as impactful as a story as New Order or New Colossus. But I feel like New Colossus had just a wider variety of environments to roam around in. I love when, I'm so used to like Bethesda games, like especially when you go back to like Fallout 3, it's like all the same drab monotone color for most of the whole game. It's just like, it's all browns or greens or just like grays and stuff. And when you get these rich, vibrant color palettes, like when you're going to, like the downtown area before the diner scene with the shake, and it's like blue skies and it's like
goddamn Norman Rockwell painting.
Yeah, it was. I felt the same way. I was like,
saturated with Nazis, and it makes you angry.
and that's actually like one area of the game where it's like it didn't tell you where to go, but you kind of knew, I got to go down the street and I should turn right and go down here. And it's like I could have probably spent way more time in there just walking around, looking at things, and more importantly, walking up to NPC characters who have these random conversations with each other, and you could have gotten all sorts of different story dialogues.
A lot of that's cool. A lot of that is really cool. I got a ton of it.
Yeah.
Like, instead of going down the street, I took a right down the alleyway and went to the end of the street, and there was a drunk guy sitting there just talking about stuff, rambling about stuff that he hated. It's like, okay, well, I better move along. And instead of like being like, oh, well, I'll turn around, go back to the path and walk, I just walked down the backside of the building and came out to where some Nazis were and just had to refigure out where I was going. Because, it kind of put sometimes games like that put a fear in you of, okay, if I stray, is this a game where if I stray too far from the path, shit goes sideways, or is this a game where I am safe exploring everything I possibly can until I get to this gate, and then that's when the next part of the game goes. You know what I mean? And I feel I didn't explore too much, but I feel like that part of Wolfenstein is kind of like the latter, where it's like you can kind of walk around and see what Bethesda would think that timeline would be like without really wrecking your playthrough of the game, or having to worry about somebody coming and shooting you, or being like, oh, game over, replay all of it from, you loading the screen coming into the level.
That's always a mental challenge for me as I play through whatever game it is. It's like part of my satisfaction of playing games is actually completing them and checking them off, and like, just getting getting through things, right? And so especially with longer games, I tend to like maybe at certain times rush through them instead of taking the time to really explore every nook and cranny, because I'm just so anxious I want to get through it.
Right.
And it's like I end up missing so much by doing that, and it's like it's so hard to pull back and just like say, let's take it all in and really experience everything that the developers and the designers put in there. Because I mean, just hearing some of these things, like I never knew about the alley. I saw the alley, but I never thought about going down there, because I'm like, hey, I'm on the main road, and there's some Nazi guards up here that are hassling some common person, and maybe I should walk over there and see what's happening with that. It's like,
or avoid it, because you're like, they might find out who you are. Yeah, like
I got a game over in that area because I wanted to go down that alley, but I walked in front of the two Nazis and the two KKK members, and they're like, "What's he doing going down there?" And then I'm like, "Uh-oh, I know how this is going to end."
See, as long as they see that is a game over. Like, because I went down the alley and the guy's like spewing stuff about how he hates Nazis and all this stuff, and then he just quietly tramples off on his speech just because he's drunk and he doesn't want to get killed. But
good for him.
Yeah, it was just entertaining. So yeah, and I kind of moved along. I thought I was going to get a game over where you're walking down and there's the big flying like robot thing like checking the guy's papers. I'm expecting the robot to be like, "Hey, you," but then I was like, well, maybe it's kind of like how things happen with when a cop pulls somebody over for speeding. Even if you're not speeding, but like they're not going to pull you over because they've already got somebody. You know what I mean? Like the robot's already got him, so you don't have to worry about him. So I just kind of just kept down my path and finally found my way to the restaurant you have to go to.
So Moose, you said you only played New Colossus, right? You didn't play
I played like the smallest amount of New Order. I think I got off you're on a plane or something, like the opening sequence, and then you start learning about like the guards and stuff. That was one thing we didn't talk about New Colossus that I also didn't like, is they turned it into a stealth game. I didn't appreciate that, like, because the person in me is like, I want to play it not the easiest way, but like the best way. And to me, when you introduce like stealth elements, that's like, okay, I'm going to use you get like, basically when you're in the game, you get two, like if there's two commanders out there, you get that they're the guys that blow the horns and basically tell everybody that you're there.
Alarm!
Yeah, so there's two of them, and you'll get two circles at the top of your screen, and then there will be like little waves along the circles to tell you what direction they're in, and then there's a counter in the middle which tells you how many feet you are away from them. And so like as soon as they put that into place, like the whole having fun shooting, having fun like playing the game like went out the window, and it became I need to find these guys so that they don't make noise. You know what I mean? And it kind of, for me, it took away from what I've been led to believe to expect from like a Wolfenstein game, like a Doom game. Like all of a sudden they're going to introduce stealth mechanics to a Doom game. Like really? Like would the fans really want that? So that kind of turned me off also.
Yeah. So, I mean, go ahead, Jason or Matt.
I think it was a problem in the New Order. I didn't find it too much to be a problem in the New Colossus because I basically said, "Oh, there are two of those guys. Okay, so I'm gonna go loud and just make sure I find them and kill them first." Yeah. And then because I was on baby mode, I didn't die. So, but then again, you stop enemies respawning. So, if somebody wanted to play a harder difficulty, which good on them if they do, I could see where that would be a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, my tendency is to try to do that stealth mode first, and the other two games did have it. I think out of the three New Colossus did the worst. I don't know what they tweaked.
Really?
It was more difficult to stealth in New Colossus than it was in the other ones.
Okay.
Oh no, I will agree with that, because you stand up out of nowhere, you don't see anybody, and then all of a sudden, everything goes loud. They're like, alarm! And then next thing you know, you've got the hounds of hell coming after you.
And in some points of the game, not to go down a completely different rabbit hole, but at some points of the game, I felt like they wanted you to play it more like Doom. Like they wanted they totally wanted you to just keep running. I mean, especially like scenes like the courthouse scene. I mean, you almost had to keep running. And it was only at a certain point I realized in that scene that, like, when these side doors open up, I'm like, oh, I can run through these side doors, and it actually brings me up into all these other portions of that level that make me more safe.
Yeah,
because like you're in that main one room, and it's like you're just getting nailed. It's like, oh, if I just ran through these doors, I get some cover and get some reprieve, find some more health. And it's like, oh, now I finally figured out I could do that. And it's like, oh, okay. Because sometimes, when, like in Destiny, the places that enemies spawn from, you can't go into. It's just this black curtain of vapor or whatever, and that's where the enemies come out from, but you can never go in there, right? So,
well, if you go in there, you just see that old guy from the Wizard of Oz. It's really
right.
But the one thing I noticed is there were a lot of battles in that you could actually just run through.
Yeah.
Without even, you just be like, nope, here's the checkpoint, and then literally everything behind you stops.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like the one thing that game does, like in Uncharted, is once you get past this line, it's hide and seek base.
Yeah.
I think the speed run was an hour and 5 minutes for New Colossus.
Makes sense.
That's crazy.
So you could just skip everything. There's really nothing you have to do.
Yeah.
All right.
The last question that we had for the show was thoughts on what the next might be next for the franchise.
Mecha Hitler.
So yeah, you alluded to that earlier. Another Mecha Hitler game. I'm thinking the way it left off with the story with BJ and Anya having babies is like, are they gonna like have little BJ Blazkowicz's running around or something like that?
Resistors, little Nazi resistors, I mean, that would be cool.
I mean, I'd be all well. You know what? Now that you're bringing that up, I think it'll probably be Mecha Hitler in the next game, and then maybe if they want to redo like a Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Like, and then it's BJ's kids. And they could make it like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, where it's two different players. You could play two different ways.
Yep.
That would be cool.
But it's a first-person shooter and not Assassin's Creed. So inherently a better game.
I'd only be okay with that if, like, halfway through the game, the two kids got kidnapped, and then BJ's like, nope, fuck this, and just goes all.
He's like, I'm coming out of retirement, and he's only in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be funny. That would be really, really funny.
And Moose basically says, I don't care if they make another game. I'm not playing it anyway.
Like I said, I feel it's mainly my outside, like my work life and all that stuff influencing it, and not having played the first ones.
Yeah,
it's definitely a series that probably you benefit from playing. Maybe not Old Blood.
Yeah, you definitely benefit from the New Order. That's
because Old Blood, is, like you said, was a prequel, and I understood that it was a prequel when I bought it. I bought both games, and like I said, I've tried playing New Order, and it just, like, I agree with all the people that are like, man, if you could just get past that first hour and a half, the rest of the game's fucking phenomenal. Like, it drags. And apparently they've done a good job of rectifying that in this one, where it's like, it's pretty good off the bat. It's got some, I mean, it's a little slow to begin with because they're trying to build up the story and get things going. But once it's put into place, like, it's kind of a go.
Yeah.
So I think I might even do that. I might even put the game on pause for a while and go back to New Order and play through New Order on easy and just have fun with that, and then try and then not pick up where I left off, just restart New Colossus and and just try and see how that works, and hopefully I can enjoy it more, because I admit to myself and the listeners that it is like me not really giving it a chance. Like I want to give it a chance. Like I want to give the game a chance to like enjoy it and play it. So
yeah, but you're also you're in a situation where you're working a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I had that late last year. I had that earlier this year, just because I had way too much on my plate.
Yeah.
And and very much like yourself, when I was coming to a video game, it was something I knew.
Right, exactly.
Be it Bloodborne, be it Dark Souls, it was something I didn't have to be like, okay, so where do I have to go?
Right, exactly. You don't want to think too much about it. You just want to put yourself on autopilot, and you're able to play and enjoy a game.
Yeah, and that's exactly why, like, in the little bit of spare time I've had over the past few weeks, I was able to say, you know what, I'm buying Wolfenstein 2. I am playing it on the easiest mode so I can get through it and be done.
Yeah. Jason, where do you think they're going to go?
Yeah, I could see a Mecha Hitler. Well,
what do you hope they would do? What do you want to see out of the next game? Like, what do you want to see them step up and maybe push their boundaries for?
Use the tech that's in game, and Hitler gets a new body and takes over, and BJ's gotta
come out of retirement or something.
Because obviously, when you play the game, you realize Hitler's sick; he's dying.
Mm-hmm.
But if he could have his whole body replaced like BJ and becomes this ridiculous cyborg, I think that would be awesome.
That was
well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, is that something that's like known in history that he had health issues? Because I know they used that. Spoiler alerts for Man in the High Castle. They used that in that, where Germany won the war, and so Philip K. Dick's novel, and then I'm talking about the adaptation. Thank you, on Amazon, where he is getting sick. And I was just curious as if to that was like something that was alluded to in history. Might not be official, but it might be something people have theories about, where he was getting sick and just
Well, I know that
there's rumors he had late stages of syphilis based on his behavior, or even some said possibly early onset Parkinson's.
Yeah, see, that's what I think that's what's in Man in the High Castle, is the Parkinson's.
The movie,
like the shaking, and so they don't put him on camera as much because of that.
Yeah, like the movie Downfall from the early 2000s. It basically takes place, in Hitler's bunker in his final days, and it's basically as close to the ramblings of a madman, either through syphilis or probably incoming dementia, because I see that in a lot of patients, where instead of being able to think about what's going on, they get frustrated easily because they can't figure it out for themselves.
Speaking of Downfall, Google Downfall parodies.
Oh no, those are the best. Those are the best.
They replace Hitler getting angry at like when the Giants won the Super Bowl. They'll it's the most ridiculous things, and he'll kick people out of his main room.
Yeah,
and it's just you have to. I think they've won World of Warcraft ones.
Yep, they've done tons of them. They did Pepsi versus Coke, and vice versa. I think there's one wasn't there a really funny one where he ranted about Eli Manning?
Yeah,
which is great
because he said how Tom Brady had all those weapons. If you're a Giants fan, leave the room.
Yeah, it's Downfall parodies are great. And Downfall as a movie is it's a really cool watch, I think.
But yeah,
mainly because you watch a guy just butthurt about losing, and he's also the one who deserves to fucking lose.
Yeah. All right.
I think that'll just about do it for our Wolfenstein spoiler cast.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Matt.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Yes,
I hope I didn't derail it too much. I apologize if I did.
No, I thought it went pretty
All
well.
good. All good.
I'm trying to be better. I really am.
Yeah.
We are the whirlwind. And fuck Nazis. In fact, fuck the KKK too while they're at it.
Yeah. Gonna shoot some people in Mafia 3.
I mean, if you don't want to kill Nazis in Wolfenstein, go kill racists in Mafia 3, which is basically Nazis without the uniforms. So, so yeah.
Or the white supremacy. Well, yeah, complete white supremacy. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, just
because some people they might not think they were supremacists, but they'll hate on people of color.
yeah. Oh no, yeah, no. I mean, in Philly, it's completely like they will be the first person. Oh, I'm not racist, but those people over there who are different than I am are kind of trashy.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's. I'm like, really? You're okay. I see. I've been in way too many of those conversations with people, and it's horrifying.
It is.
All right. Well, questions, comments, nerdsgoneplatinum@gmail.com or tweet us at NG_platinum.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Matt, for joining us. And we'll see everyone next week for Nerds Gone Platinum episode 26.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Have a good night.
See you next week.